Hello and welcome to the Sunday Guardian show by Joyeeta Basu. I'm the editor of the newspaper Sunday Guardian. Today I have got a very special guest on my show, Daniel Bordman, who is senior correspondent with the online newspaper National Telegraph in Canada. He describes himself as a relapsed stand-up comedian. And he's also right now a star on Twitter, which is now called X, and especially with the Indians, given the Indian following he has picked up, courtesy his comments on the ongoing India-Canada crisis, spat, you can call it. And he is now being pursued by every Indian news site, Indian news channels. So he's quite a celebrity in India by now. Welcome, Daniel, to the show.
Thanks for having me. Yes, this is not something I thought would be said about me if you asked me 3 weeks ago, but I'm not complaining. We'll say that. So I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah. Okay. The thing is that what made you become so? I mean, why did you speak out in such a major voice? You're coming across as a major voice on India-Canada relations. Suddenly, we are not seeing any such voice from Canada. So what happened?
I mean, I guess this is kind of my MO. This is my, stand-up comedian brain. I was originally a stand-up comedian at university. Then I'm like, oh, the country's collapsing and society's breaking down. Maybe we should say something before that happens around 2015, 2016. So then I started doing the news. There's a bunch of different things. I ended up getting involved in creating the National Telegraph, blah, 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 blah. And at the same time, kind of getting back into comedy after COVID and whatever. And so I have this sort of impulse to say, F it, just say it. That's kind of how my brain's worked since childhood. I mean, we used to go to family dinners and sometimes my parents would just, before we walk in the door, would go, Daniel, filter. And good thing I didn't listen, because if I had a filter, I wouldn't have gotten up in the morning that day and just started yelling about India and Canada. No, like I do care about these issues. Like I actually care about different things. And, as in the West, being on the political right, you instantly get to be a villain, just no matter what you say. But I think I'm a very good villain because I actually, like, all the people that are supposed to hate me don't. And it drives a lot of the white Canadian people a little crazy, which I find fun, because they just don't expect someone to legitimately sit down with people of different cultures and actually learn their issues and go to their homes and invite them over and have legit conversations about this. So there's a bunch of different areas where people are surprised that I have some sort of expertise. Like I kind of did a bit of a thing in the Iranian community during the Masha Amini thing, because I had a lot of really close Iranian friends and I knew the Iranian dissidents, and I worked with this sort of political prisoner network for a few years on their issues. And then, surprise, here's just some random white guy talking about like the history of, the Shah and this and that. And for India, I actually got involved, let's say, in Indian politics in 2019 during the Article 370 stuff. There was, it was around Kashmir. And like the thing about Kashmir in the West is like, we were supposed to hear Kashmir or like Israel, Palestine or other things, and just like, whoa, that's complicated. I don't want to get involved in that. It's so complicated. And I really hate that mentality. One of the things that I like tried to do with my show over the years is explain things and treat people with like respect and trust them that they can understand geopolitics. It's not something that only the brilliant people like that. I think that's part of the narrative and why people are so ignorant of geopolitics, because we've created this false narrative that you need like a 4-year degree in like foreign affairs to understand like the most basic things about human behavior. And you really don't. And a lot of the foreign policy experts in the West are ding-dongs, and who get everything wrong all the time. So I just decided, oh, okay, Kashmir, I'm sure this isn't as complicated as it is. So I, asked people I was working with. I read what Article 370 was. I read the history around it. And then I just, I like a segment of the show, I just like went a bit off on that and was like, listen, Pakistan's wrong about this. Here's the Pakistani claim. It's a ridiculous claim. And here's the Indian claim, and here's the proof for it. And like, here's what's going on in Kashmir. Here's what happened in 1990, blah. Like, I sort of did a classic Daniel. And that was popular among India. got a little bit of death threats from Pakistan, which was always fun. And yeah, so that was like, I guess the first time I got noticed in these kind of circles. So I had some Indian following a little bit before this. And I was invited by the Kashmiri Pandit Society of Canada. I can't remember the name, but to review the Kashmir files for the newspaper. I did some speaking events with them, but then when like Trudeau kicked the diplomat out and named him publicly and just did like a crazy thing to a country that you just can't do that to. Like if we had kicked out I don't know, a diplomat from Botswana over something, okay, whatever. Like we can take Botswana, we can't take India. So you can't just do things fly off the cuff willy-nilly, crazy town, and just like assume they're gonna lie there and take it. And like I know a bit about modern Indian politics and a bit about Narendra Modi, and I'm like, well, they're not going to just take this. And I also know that there's been 40 years of problems brewing between us over the Air India bombing and the Khalistani movement, and there's so many hostile anti-India people in the Liberal government that it's like there are deeper problems. And to me, it's like that was a straw that broke the camel's back. And a lot of Canadians have a very hard time understanding that. I think it was just like this explosive one-time thing. And it was like, no, there was 40 years of BS and animosity built up before this over the neglect of the Khalistani issue, even after they committed the worst terrorist attack in Canadian history. And it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And it's really been undermining India. And then Canada took a shot and punched India in the face with a public declaration on all this and kicked the diplomat. And I just like, I made a tweet, it got some attention, and then I make videos. So I just woke up in the morning when it happened, and I just had this 101, like, I need to explain to people what's going on type thing. It's like, Canadians need to know, Indians need to know, the Canadians, and it was like, sort of a, guys.
And the whole thing became big after
and then that was big. So the moral of the story, I guess, is there's like, it didn't happen out of nowhere. Like I spent years in this like community actually learning about it. I had a bit of a base beforehand there. Like I kept in on issues and different things. And so yeah, I mean, it got some virality, and that's nice. But I mean, it came because I think this wasn't the first time I spoke on these issues. So I guess some people would recognize me, and I'd say some people initially in India who were retweeting that might have, recognized me maybe from the Article 370 stuff and maybe followed a bit. So I had a bit of a base to go off of, and like I actually do care about this. Like it is fun and interesting, but also like the response to the Air India bombing is the most shameful thing I think my country's ever done. No one got justice. The families were screwed over beforehand with the negligence, during when their families were murdered, and then again afterwards. And until this day, still, like, I mean, Canada owes itself and its citizens like an apology. And so like, yeah, this maddening thing where we pretend to be this great diversity, equity, inclusion, bastion of liberal, progressive, modern values that Trudeau goes around hectoring everyone on, and we can't even protect like our most vulnerable communities. And that just it honestly pisses me off, and I think that sometimes comes through when I'm like ranting about this, and I think people kind of pick up that this isn't like, I'm not just like going on Indian TV to like try and get famous and say the things that the Indian government wants to say so that like I can just like get on a billboard somewhere in Mumbai. It's like, no, I have opinions. I'm a legit crazy person, but now that I'm successful, it's eccentric. So you don't worry. I'm now an eccentric person because it worked. But like there is that sort of like, I just like, they ask me a question, I'm just going to say what I think, and I enjoy that. So.
Yeah, great. Now the question is that what is Justin Trudeau's problem with India? It almost seems personal. I'll ask you, the next question will be what is Justin Trudeau's problem with Canada? But first, let me ask what is Justin Trudeau's problem with India?
It's good. I mean, they are kind of linked in a way because it's part. I think part of it is this modern ideology of this sort of masochistic anti-Westernism that we have in our society, and I think because of India's success as a culture and as it's modernizing, it also has academic institutions which are prone to the same ideological BS as the Western ones. But Trudeau's an ideologue. Trudeau he's the son of a former prime minister who's very controversial. His grandfather was a major oil tycoon, so he's come from money and power and privilege and blah 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 blah, all the things he complains about. And he's always had a soft spot for violent genocidal authoritarians. He admires the basic dictatorship of China. His brother Alexandra has been fascinated with the Islamic Republic of Iran since a kid. He worked for Press TV, which is a literal propaganda channel of the Islamic Republic. He's one of Trudeau's advisors, his brother. So he grows up in a family that consistently supported dictatorial evils and has googly eyes for Fidel Castro, Xi Jinping, the Ayatollah Khomeini and Khamenei. These are the people who are spoken positively of in the Trudeau household. So it would make sense that he would back Pakistan over India. It's sort of the thing of like countries that are more successful and tolerant in the modern world tend to tolerate more criticism and then therefore get some, right? You go to Qatar, you start talking about how Qatar is a slave state that is like, you know, basically kidnapping and immigrants and people from South Asia, tricking them into going, and then you know, the oil wealth, and they have no human rights, and this, like, they're not going to tolerate that. They'll just throw you in jail, kick you out. But you know, there's countries, you know, like India, where you can go around and you can say this and that, and it's allowed, so it happens more. And I'm not saying don't allow it. I'm not saying go to Qatar. I'm saying it's good that you're a country that allows these things, but you know, it comes with this sort of radical leftist ideologues. And then you added the fact that Trudeau's being pushed by Jagmeet Singh, who's in a coalition with who we know why he's anti-India, because he's a hardcore Khalistani. And the Khalistanis also have significant influence in the Liberal Party. And it sucks because they're not the majority of the Sikhs. The majority of Sikhs are anti these guys. Like the majority of Sikhs in my DMs cheering me on. But the way the Canadian system is set up, it has allowed certain, you know, fringe elements to gain outsized power if they have money and the drive to do so. It's pretty easy to infiltrate the Canadian system. You don't even need a lot of money. You just need to know how to get the money into politics through the Canadian regulations and restrictions. And if you could do that, you can buy up the party. So like a lot of vote bank politics, as you call it, is more money, less votes. You just need a few hundred people in a nomination and a bunch of money to give through those people, and you can make a candidate out of nowhere. So there are, I mean, there's a bunch of people who was in, I mean, you remember the former defense minister of Canada, Harjit Sajjan, the defense minister, when he went to the Punjab, Colonel, I think it's, I can't remember, but do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, well, just wouldn't shake his hand.
He's a Khalistani. I mean, he's also a pro-Khalistani. I think the state chief minister refused to meet him, and a lot of things happened at that time.
Yeah, he was a Sikh, high-ranking Sikh military officer in India wouldn't meet with the Canadian Minister of Defense because he's like, yeah, this is a terrorist sympathizer. He's a Khalistani. So these are the things when I got asked a couple last night, like, oh, what happened? Or what's this? And I'm like, yeah, well, it's kind of been 40 years in the making. They're like, what? Like, these are the things. Like, we sent a defense, like they thought our defense minister was a terrorist sympathizer with them. Like, and like, come on, guys, get it together. But that's not what we do in Canada. So
the awareness level is very, very low, or at least until recently it was. Is that the reason why there is, I mean, Trudeau is kind of getting away with the kind of misinformation? Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh, we are seeing the kind of misinformation.
Oh, yeah, very low information on India, on a lot of things really in Canada. I mean, we pay more attention to American politics than anything else, than even to our own politics as a society. It's one of the things I try and change, but it is what it is. That's sort of our big foreign policy stuff. It's a lot of like, we know our Western stuff, and it's sort of, we just like thinking we're more reasonable than America. So we love when Donald Trump, like we love Donald Trump in Canada because we hate him, like as a society. But like we need a boogeyman where it's just we like the Canadian press gets to be like, oh my God, Donald Trump said something crazy. Let's never cover Canadian politics again. And then Trudeau's been able to use the fact that one, for 4 years, our entire media would only cover what Donald Trump was tweeting. So you could do whatever. But we have the Khalistanis running around Canada. Like they're in Canada. They're not in the Punjab region. Like they're gone from the Punjab region. They're in Canada, running around harassing people, Sikhs and Hindus here.
So,
like,
yeah, I
can we please do something about this? Anyone?
So on the whole,
right? So that's my thing. It's like, yeah, keep going. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, no. Basically, what I mean, I kind of jokingly said what is Justin Trudeau's problem with Canada. But the fact is that, when you're looking at Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh together, would you say, how would you rate their governance standard? What is going on in Canada in terms of domestic politics? And I see a lot of authoritarian moves by Justin Trudeau, by the way. How come the West is not bothered about it? So tell us a little bit about what is happening in Canada.
I'll sum it up quickly. We're printing money like a bunch of lunatics, and then we're censoring free speech. These are the two things we're doing. Just printing money like there's no tomorrow and throwing it around, and then inflation goes up, and then it's like, oh no, inflation goes up. Let's give a grocery rebate. Everyone gets $47 this week. We've saved it. Inflation went up. Here's a new thing. Okay, we're going to increase taxes, and then it's socialist lefty nonsense that it's driving me crazy. And now, like, the big push is they're trying to censor podcasts and go after YouTube, and they just listen. Trudeau, I've been confused. He's a proto-authoritarian, especially on free speech. He plays this nice figure on the international community, but all his worst impulses are similar to Donald Trump's, and he's more vicious in some ways than Donald Trump because there's an air of self-righteousness to it, whereas Trump's a bit more flippant and can be distracted here and there. Like, you could jingle some keys in front of him and then he'll go in a new direction. But Trudeau's incredibly vicious to people who don't agree with him. It's like Trump. You say you love Trump, he loves you. You say hate Trump, he hates you. It's a straight binary, right? You can tell Donald Trump's opinion on you, but your opinion on Donald Trump. Okay. It's actually a decent geopolitical strategy, side note, but fine. But Justin Trudeau is the very same. But he doesn't get out there and yell. It's like, if you go against him, you're racist, you're a Nazi, you're this, you're horrible, you're un-Canadian, you're unacceptable. And we're going to bring the weight of the system down upon you, which is the thing Trump never really did, is he never tried to bring the system on people. He would just yell at them on Twitter like a lunatic. But Trudeau will bring the weight of the establishment down upon the people he perceives to be enemies. He will destroy it. And that's around 80% of Canada right now, which is not on sort of the hardline progressive ideology. And the problem, again, is our media there's half the media will just cheer him on no matter what he does. Just lie for him. The media functions as the opposition to the opposition in Canada, right? We have the official opposition now, which is the Conservative Party. And then we have the opposition to the opposition, which is the media. The mainstream media, at least, or everything on, the television, newspaper for the most part. Not to say there are no good journalists in Canada, like Terry Milewski worked at CBC. I'm sure you guys know Terry Glavin. He's really good. Robert Fife, Sam Cooper. Like, I can name some journalists who haven't been corrupted. Joe Warmington. Like, I can name some. I'm not saying every journalist in the mainstream in Canada is corrupt. You can't trust them. Go to the internet. Only watch my show. No, but within every major institution, journalistic institution in Canada, because of the government subsidies and the ideological infiltration of the left and, Trudeau's censorship and regulation, there is enough people high up in every news organization that would, anytime the Liberals want, they could get a mercenary to put any article they want or any narrative they want in any newspaper in the country that gets these subsidies. And we saw that during the trucker protest freedom convoy. Yes. Just the absolute level of it wasn't even misinformation or disinformation, but anti-truth, just straight up anti-truth, just blazingly reporting the exact opposite of what happened. With me, I was covering it. There was no possible excuse sometimes for the things the media were saying to cover. Like, they had to be there. They had to see what happened, and they had to make the willful decision to
Mm.
actively lie and slander the people on the ground for whatever reason. And I don't think Justin Trudeau was calling a reporter, but you just saw a situation where like the establishment rallied, everyone there was anti-establishment. Like I was seeing crazy things like during I was seeing like people getting protesters during the Emergencies Act covering it, like getting dragged, beaten, pepper sprayed, like really bad things, and like mainstream media just standing there and not turning camera to it. Like they got behind the line, like they got special privilege. So you saw like crazy things happening. Like it's Canada. Like there was just some woman holding a sign saying "Singing O Canada" within a crowd, just getting grabbed by the police, thrown into a thing, and then cameras turn off. They would do a thing where they'd just film people getting grabbed. So it was like, oh, arrests are being made, 74 arrests to do this thing. The protesters were violent. But again, I was filming the whole thing. There was no violence from the protesters. They were literally just singing "O Canada," walking backwards, getting pepper sprayed and beaten. And the media had a chance to show that angle of the story. But they only wanted to show people getting grabbed. They didn't want to show them getting beaten. Just grabbed, make it look like they're a bit aggressive, cut it with some other footage out of context somewhere else. And it portrayed the thing that there's this violent mob that the police had to come and crush. And like and this was down there, global, CTV, CBC, all of them fell in line. There was a story where a woman got trampled by a horse in Canada. It was on video. My friend Beth Bassett from Post Millennial was the one who got the video. So I talked to her. She showed me the video. I've seen it. We all know the woman's in a hospital. And the government said, no, didn't happen. It wasn't trampled by a horse. The horses, and what happened is the horse got spooked because a protester threw a bicycle at the horse. Video, no bicycles thrown. Again, Beth got the video. There was no bicycle being thrown. But even though there was video counterproof, objective counterproof that we were able to send and tag to every news organization, some journalists covered, but every single news organization, even The Sun, which is the right-wing news organization, everyone the next day came out with a story that said it was a lie. There was no horse being trampled, like no woman was trampled. They all said a bike was thrown at the horse. And they kept the story even after visual proof, videos showed that the narrative the government made up just wasn't what happened. Still, every single news organization is still doing the convoy was violent, this still has the government narrative as the truth. And this affects people because when this is going to go to court and people's lives are going to be decided, the courts are going to look at like the newspapers and the mainstream media and not alternative online media. They're going to look at the traditional National Post media and they're going to say, well, this is what happened. And people's lives are going to be destroyed and over the lies that they spun. So, I mean, that's the state of news in Canada, and we're facing more censorship on the online stuff. And like this has been, the Trudeau government has been so determined to undermine free expression, like so determined, so many laws. Try and try again. When they got stymied and had to do an election, it was their number one priority when they reformed government this time, was to push these censorious nonsense bills. I mean, Canada's a country where you cannot see news on Google. You cannot see the news on Google or Meta, Facebook and Google, the two biggest news sites in the world. You cannot see the news in Canada without a VPN. North Korea, Islamic Republic of Iran, the Uyghur concentration camps in China and Canada, places you just can't get the news online. It's insane. So we're running around like we're this first world super democracy with our nose in the air over like India. Oh, far right, Hindu nationalism, far right, blah, blah. You can't see the news in this country on the internet. Like, what are we talking about? Who are we lecturing right now on anything? The country's a mess. It's an economic catastrophe. We're printing money, unemployment, like, and you turn on Facebook and Google, it's North Korea. You literally can't get the news. And these have the audacity to say, oh, we did it for you, Daniel. We were trying to get you money. We were just trying to make the big tech companies pay their fair share. We were the good guys. It was the big tech companies that did this. Even though content creators, we went to Parliament, we explained how the law was going to screw us over. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly what the point was. To help us, they destroyed us, and they're happy with it. and and like, and again, and then he runs off to India and gives you a lecture on free speech. And the only free speech that is important to Justin Trudeau is the ability for Khalistanis to threaten to kill Hindus and other Sikhs. So this is the only free speech Justin Trudeau matters. It's only when someone gets up and threatens to kill India and violently balkanize a geopolitical ally. That's where we do it, right? It's Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who's on video supporting suicide bombings. What a great guy. Praising the KLF while putting up pictures of legitimate terrorists who murdered people. What a great guy. And then again, the Canadian media, none of this has made it into Canadian mainstream media. None of it. They have not, again, he's, they're doing the plumber, religious scholar, human rights activist shtick. And listen, you can call him a plumber and all this, but for 3 weeks, there have been videos circulating on this guy. We know what his Gurdwara is up to. We know that place is a hotbed of gang activity, terrorism support, and just outright criminality. I'll take that back. We don't know exactly what's going on. What we know from the videos in there is there's a lot of support for people who have committed horrific acts of violence against Indians, Indian Canadians, and the like. And they're doing the whole thing. People in his Gurdwara are also getting death threats. Yeah, because they're threatening to kill everyone else. It's not good. Don't threaten. If you're watching this and you're a Hindu Canadian and you know about these Gurdwaras and they're threatening to kill you, don't call them and threaten to kill them back. Call the police and file a police report, or reach out to me and show me what they're saying and I can help you get some attention. Don't threaten to kill people. I get it, it's bad, but also, can we be adults with half a brain and understand that if there is an institution that's openly praising terrorism and violence and threatening people, they're probably going to get some threats back. It's just the natural tide of things. It shouldn't happen. It's not good. And so I'm not supporting it, but you understand why these people are making other people a little bit mad. People don't like when you threaten to kill them every day. It's considered rude in our culture.
Yeah. Okay. Now, my question is about Jagmeet Singh. How complicit is Jagmeet Singh in all this?
Oh, he's so happy. He's so happy. This is the best week, the best time ever for Jagmeet. He doesn't care about, he doesn't care about his party. He already broke it. It's literally broke. He brought a bunch of money in from who knows where during the leadership thing, but he's a socialist, so he's already spent all the money. They've been broke for a while. They're morally bankrupt. They've lost their base in the working class. He's just going around trying to appeal to 20-year-old girls who've taken one course in something and are very mad about whatever. And Khalistanis. This is it's college girls and Khalistanis. This is Jagmeet Singh's demographic. And when there was a fight started with India, he's just so happy. He knew he was responsible. He knew it was Narendra Modi killed this austere religious scholar. I wouldn't be surprised if he's on a plane to Mumbai and New Delhi right now, with handcuffs. He's coming. He's coming. He knows who's responsible. Everyone in the Indian government, you're all under arrest. We're gonna have 3 Khalistans, guys. Jagmeet's so excited. So this is the best moment of his life. Canada and India are fighting. He's probably just dancing around. This is a guy who took 3 tries to say the Air India bombing was a bad thing and not a conspiracy done by the Indian government. So yeah, he's a lunatic conspiratorial Khalistani. And somehow he's the second most powerful man in the country.
Unbelievable. And the thing is that given that the elections, I think, are still 2 years away from both their numbers are tanking, it seems. Do you think a possibility of change of government inside 2 years, or do you think by 2 years things will kind of become everything normal and Canada will become the darling?
No. Trudeau's pissed off enough people. The Conservatives are winning by too much. I haven't seen a poll with them not 10 points ahead in a while, and then some have even hit 20 at points of this controversy, right? Trudeau also invited a Nazi into parliament and then wouldn't take responsibility for a while. He's alienated so many people, and there's so many people for example, small business owners, farmers, doctors, anyone who could sort of incorporate in Canada, he called them tax cheats. But then when he changed the laws to screw them over, somehow the laws around his trust fund, perfectly secure. So he went after the rich and all their tax cheats, but his trust fund, the laws around how his trust fund was set up. Don't worry, guys, it's safe. Safe. He can continue to fight for all the poors with his trust fund intact. Don't worry. So like, and that's just one example I give of like everyone who's at some point been called a Nazi by Trudeau, a tax cheat, this, that. The last conservative leader was an absolute idiot. He didn't know how to be conservative. He tried to portray himself as liberal light, so he embraced all the liberal policies. Like I didn't even vote for the Conservatives last time around because all the policies that Trudeau is doing to destroy Canada, they're like, well, we're too scared to do anything else because the media will say mean things about us. So we're going to do them in just a more mature way. We're going to ruin the country in a more mature, thoughtful way. We're going to go 100 miles off the cliff, but we're going to put on some music. We're not going to be yelling or screaming. It's going to be very orderly collapse and explosion. And that was sort of their pitch to Canadians. And a lot of us were like, what are you talking about? There's no, like, run against someone or something, right? So there was also in the height of COVID madness. So no one, like, everyone, a lot of people in Canada were scared before they woke up and was like, oh, it's just a cold, like sniffles plus. Like, I'm not one of those, COVID isn't real. It's a little bit, it's like the super sniffles. Oh, you'll sneeze. Like, okay, like, right. So, but we were still in a state where, like, we have to find the COVID heretics, and like someone in Saskatchewan isn't getting vaccinated. Like, yeah, that's a crazy person who thinks that George Soros is about to take over the moon. You think you're gonna get this person vaccinated? Like, we're not gonna have a country until this person gets vaccinated? Come on, like, just let them friggin' roam around and do what they want. Like, but no, we couldn't do that. We were hunting down heretics, and then we had the Freedom Convoy to stop all this. But yeah, that's the
Okay, I
state of
think
Canadian
we're
politics is.
almost running out of time. A quick question: what can be done to salvage? Because India-Canada relations are important.
Yes.
A quick answer in terms of what can be done to salvage India-Canada relations in the immediate future. Because as I said, if you're changing your prime minister, that will take another 2 years.
Yeah.
And
So we need to take the Calistani issue seriously. Like this, my message to Canada is this does not go away and is not made better, and there isn't a future of Canada real relationship. Like, we could go to sort of more amicable, surface level stuff, and a lot of Canadians will be fine with that, just to not whatever. But if you want a real, we have to deal with the Calistani issue. So what I would like to see, and would be assigned to me, that in the near term that we're kind of turning it around, we need to take it more seriously. So at the very least, because again, I think no one's stupid. They know that Katie Telford, Justin Trudeau's chief of staff, can pick up the phone to any news organization and change the narrative like that, and they'll all fall in line. I think you need to start seeing in Canadian media the real life of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, kind of calm the country down, get off this sort of religious scholar thing, and so do we know if any did it or not? We might know that question. Who knows? Like, but in Canada, if people see that the guy who got killed, what he was involved in,
yes,
what the Gurdwara he was involved in is saying to this day, and then we kind of shift so Canadians understand, like, oh, okay, I see what happened here. It's not like this crazy Indian government is just hunting down Sikh people everywhere. If they did do this, okay, I kind of understand. Wow, this is going on in Canada, because Canadians don't like this. Canadians like being nice. Canadians like Hindus. Canadians like Sikhs. Canadians like India. They like to be liked. They want to be your friend and all this, but they don't know that, or they don't want to know, or some things, or they're ignorant of it, that sometimes within these sub communities there's problems, and it breaks down, and you have here these Khalistanis openly threatening and harassing people, and like, this country is not safe for certain people because of these lunatics. And if they were alt-right white people running around harassing any other identifiable group, we deal with it instantly. But if it's not a easy cut and dry case of neo-Nazi versus Jew, black, gay, Muslim, this, then we break down as a society and we can't find our moral compass or our courage to do anything about it. So it has allowed these radicals to act with impunity for years, decades, really. And now we're facing the consequences because it's leaked out of our country and caused us real problems. And India's not just going to ignore this and tell their citizens, yeah, it's just the potential violent balkanization. Well, it would just be a horrific civil war that would create a Pakistani proxy state and another terror proxy state on our border. That would then be a hotbed for Russia and China to infiltrate. No big deal, guys.
Yes.
No, just violent balkanization and decades long of terrorism. No biggie. Like, no, kind of a biggie.
Thank you. I think we are almost run out of time. Thank you so much, Daniel, for coming on this show. And thank you, viewers, for watching this. Do watch
Thanks
it.
so much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you again. Yeah.